Hi, it's Katrina. Giant tail. Locals from the state of Coahuila in Mexico stumbled across something quite extraordinary. While out and about in the desert state, they found giant bones sticking out. They alerted Mexico's National Institute for Anthropology and History, who sent out a team of paleontologists. They were able to unearth the 72-million-year-old fossilized remains of a dinosaur's tail. Found near the small town of General Cepeda in the border state of Coahuila, it's the first ever fossil of its type found in the country. According to the INAH, dinosaur tails are pretty rare, but in this case the team was able to carefully excavate 50 vertebrae. The remarkably well-preserved 16-foot-long tail belonged to a type of duck-billed dinosaur called a hadrosaur. The fossil stands to teach scientists more about the hadrosaur family and the diseases that affected dinosaurs based on their bones. Scientists have already been able to determine that the dinosaur suffered from tumors and arthritis. Mexico's northern desert states are a hotbed of dinosaur fossils, according to INAH spokesman Francisco Aguilar, who added that Mexico has a rich history of paleontology. During the Cretaceous period, the country's northern central region was along the coast, so scientists have been able to uncover both land dinosaurs and prehistoric marine reptiles. Mystery structure. Archaeologists working along Istanbul's Asian shore and the Kadıköy district recently uncovered the ruins of a mysterious marble structure that has yet to be identified. It was found near one of the waiting platforms at the historic Haydarpaşa train station, where excavations have been ongoing since 2018 as it gets renovated. While the structure offers no obvious insight regarding its use, researchers believe it was considered sacred. It's apsidal in shape, meaning it contained a domed, semicircular recess, which was a commonly seen feature in ancient churches. The marble building is the latest of several fascinating artifacts and ruins discovered at the site, including mass graves, over 18,000 centuries-old coins, a fountain, a church, and hints of a grand Byzantine palace that once stood there. The array of findings are a testament to Kadıköy's long history of being inhabited by different cultures, as well as its past as a busy commercial hub. Turkish State Railways has alternate tracks leading to the station as excavations continue, leaving undiscovered artifacts safe in the meantime. Human cousin skull. An Australian research team from La Trobe University in Melbourne recently announced the 2018 discovery of a 2-million-year-old skull belonging to an early human relative in South Africa. It's believed to be the oldest example of the species, Paranthropus robustus, ever found. The skull fragments were found north of Johannesburg at the Drimmelen Archaeological Site, where archaeologists found the remains of another distant cousin to humans, Homo erectus, in 2015. The two species lived around the same time, with P. robustus having a smaller brain, much larger teeth, and ultimately dying out before Homo erectus. Dr. Angeline Lees told the BBC that before the skull's discovery, experts had only found a single tooth here and there belonging to P. robustus. She further explained that these two vastly different species represent divergent evolutionary experiments. While we were the lineage that won out in the end, 2 million years ago, the fossil record suggests that Paranthropus robustus was much more common than Homo erectus on the landscape. A newly published study detailing the team's findings after analyzing the skull for 2 years reveals that P. robustus's large teeth are an evolutionary adaptation for chewing the tough, fibrous foods that made up most of its diet, like plants and bark. The species focused most of its chewing in the back of its mouth, causing its jaw to grow and strengthen over time. But the primates had small bodies and were generally less than 4 feet tall. Males weighed just 119 pounds on average, while females were around 88 pounds. A missing relic. Abir El-Adani is a curatorial assistant at the University of Aberdeen in Scotland. She is originally from Egypt and was intrigued when in late 2019 she found a cigar box with her home country's flag on it in the university's museum collections. Inside the box was a lost relic from the Great Pyramid of Giza in the form of cedar wood fragments, constituting the missing third component of a trio of artifacts known as the Dixon relics. They are the only known objects ever recovered from inside the Great Pyramid. The other 2 relics, a ball and a hook, are at the British Museum, while the newly discovered third item was missing for over 70 years before El-Adani unsuspectingly stumbled upon it. Eladani, who worked at the Egyptian Museum in Cairo for a decade before coming to Aberdeen, was shocked by the discovery, stating in a press release, "I'm an archaeologist and have worked on digs in Egypt, but I never imagined it would be here in northeast Scotland that I'd find something so important to the heritage of my own country." An engineer named Wayneman Dixon and his friend James Grant found the relics in a part of the pyramid called the Queen's Chamber in 1872. Dixon kept the ball and hook, while Grant, a graduate from the University of Aberdeen, returned to Scotland with the piece of wood. It was lost after his collections were bequeathed to the university following his death. The wood fragment's purpose is unknown, although one popular theory holds that they were part of a larger wooden measuring tool, which was spotted inside the pyramid by robotic camera in 1993. Radiocarbon dating revealed that they originated sometime between 3,341 and 3,094 BC, centuries before the Great Pyramid was built. The good news is that even though it got lost, it was kept safe and sound in the collections. Wonder what else is lost in there? Oldest python fossil. Scientists in Germany have just discovered the fossilized remains of the oldest python on record. The slithery serpent was found by an ancient lake at the Messel fossil pit near what is now Frankfurt, where it lived roughly 48 million years ago. It had 275 vertebrae and was roughly the same size as modern small pythons, growing up to 3.3 feet long. Through the discovery, researchers learned that pythons lived alongside boa constrictors during ancient times, although the two are usually found nowhere near one another today. This raises questions about how the species coexisted, since they both kill prey by squeezing them to death, and they were direct ecological competitors, study co-researcher Hussam Zahar told Life Science. Zahar believes that finding more ancient specimens may lead to answers, and it would be especially helpful to find snakes with preserved stomach contents. Studying invasive boa and python populations in Florida, one of the few places where they live alongside one another today, can also help to solve the mystery. Prior to the discovery, experts were unsure where pythons originated from. Today, they live primarily throughout the southern hemisphere, but their closest living relatives, Mexico's burrowing python and the sunbeam snakes of Southeast Asia, are found in the northern hemisphere. Researchers now believe, based on the newly discovered species, Mesolopython freyi, that pythons may have evolved in Europe. Ancient hidden text. While working together on a project to create a light that reveals hidden writing on parchment manuscripts, 3 students at the Rochester Institute of Technology, or RIT, in Western New York found invisible lettering in a French song and prayer book called the Book of Hours. The trio of talented scientists were part of a project that started out with 19 students. By the time they made the discovery, they were the only ones left working on the project, which by then had turned into a paid job. While looking for hidden text with a special light sounds like something from National Treasure or the Da Vinci Code, this new invention can now detect writing that was erased in the past. Pages from old manuscripts that contain different writing hidden underneath are called palimpsests. Parchment was a very expensive material in the past, so people would write on it and then remove the writing to either reuse it or resell it. Through trial and error, the students discovered the invisible text by using both a digital color camera and black and white camera with different types of colored glass, kind of like using a darkroom and film photography. They also wrote a code for this system to process the digital photos and bring out the hidden text to make them readable. In this case, the invisible text is medieval French, although when it was discovered they had no idea what it said or if it was even important. This new invention could help uncover extremely valuable historical information from texts all over the world. The students continue to search for more palimpsests and are very excited, saying that it's like finding gold. They may also commercialize the system they developed, making it easier for others to search parchment for hidden writing. Pages from old manuscripts are spread all over in different collections, but now in our modern digital era, it might be easy for the different places to gather all of this hidden information into one big database. Oldest rice paddies. People have been eating rice for a very long time. The world's oldest rice paddies that have been discovered date back 6,300 years. They were recently discovered in East China's Zhejiang province in the modern-day city of Yuyao. So far, archaeologists have excavated just 1 acre of what they believe is a 222-acre site of ancient checkerboard patterned fields. Over a roughly 2,000-year span that started around 4,300 BC and encompassed 3 prehistoric periods, rice paddies had different forms. Prior to the new discovery, the oldest rice paddies ever found were around 3,000 years old. The newly discovered site is both the world's largest and oldest large-scale ancient paddy field and is connected with the early Hemudu culture. In an earlier study, a DNA analysis of 2,000-year-old rice showed that people once enjoyed many more varieties of the staple crop than the 2 types that are mainly grown today. Archaeologists continue to excavate at the site, hoping to make more fascinating discoveries about the history of rice. Rice might be boring, but just like salt and cod, these things have helped shape our entire human history. Ancient whale skeleton. Researchers in Thailand have discovered a nearly perfectly preserved ancient whale skeleton thought to be up to 5,000 years old. The remains, which were found west of Bangkok in Samut Sakhon, are believed to be a bride's whale. As of November this year, archaeologists had excavated roughly 80% of the 39-foot-long skeleton, including 19 vertebrae, 5 ribs, a shoulder blade, and fins. The skull alone is nearly 10 feet long. The skeleton was found 7.5 miles inland. In addition to teaching scientists about the species' evolution, the discovery stands to reveal information about climate change and rising sea levels, bolstering evidence of rising seas in the Gulf of Thailand between 3,000 and 6,000 years ago, and a coastline that was much further inland than it is today. Before now, experts were unsure whether fossils of small marine creatures in the area were carried inland by humans or if they ended up there as the result of a shifting coastline. But the discovery of the whale was a game changer, according to National University of Singapore researcher Marcus Chua, because it would provide strong evidence of where the sea was during that time. Bride's whales are a protected species found in modern-day Thailand, where fishing equipment and tourism threaten their survival. Oldest place name sign. An international team of researchers from the University of Bonn in Germany and the Egyptian Ministry of Antiquities has uncovered the world's oldest place name sign in Sudan, which was once part of the Kingdom of Ancient Egypt. They found a rock on Wadi al-Malik, an ancient riverbed, and deciphered its 4 hieroglyphs which say, "Domain of the Horus King Scorpion." The sign dates back over 5,000 years to around 3070 BC. In the words of University of Bonn Egyptologist Ludwig D. Mohrens, this ruler called Scorpion was a prominent figure in the phase of the birth of the first territorial state in the history of the world. The exact details of Scorpion's life, death, and reign are unknown, and researchers admittedly do not know much about what life in general was like in the region at the time. Very little written information survives about the political, social, and economic conditions there, and the rock's discoverers noted that the artifact is an unusual find for its time, and the fact that it was in such a remote place. In an interview with the Daily Mail, Moran stated, "I think that with our findings in Wadi el-Malik, we can get a better understanding of the internal socio-economic development of Egypt a bit more than 5,000 years ago. Despite its brevity, the inscription opens a window into the world of the emergence of the Egyptian state and the culture associated with it." The rock, coupled with other early rock inscriptions and pottery discovered nearby, indeed offer unprecedented insight into the ancient world. Excavations are ongoing, so more artifacts may be found, helping scientists better understand this little-known historical period. Ancient arrows. As the world's glaciers and ice masses melt amid rising global temperatures, previously frozen artifacts are appearing for the first time, giving experts a rare opportunity to gain a better understanding of life in certain regions throughout history. Archaeologists in Norway have found a collection of ancient artifacts dating back to over 6,000 years ago from the melting Langfon ice patch in the Jotunheimen Mountains over 200 miles north of the capital of Oslo. Included among the objects are 68 arrows that were used for hunting reindeer, which were traced back to various time periods as far back as the Stone Age and as recent as medieval times. Researchers are calling it a prehistoric arrow bonanza. Additionally, the team found reindeer antlers, scaring sticks from the Iron Age that were used for hunting, and a 3,300-year-old Bronze Age shoe. They published their findings in the Holocene Journal, noting that the collection includes the earliest known ice finds in northern Europe. The study also points out that in the last 20 years, the Langfon ice patch has retreated by over 70%. The ice melt, sad as it is, provides an unprecedented archaeological opportunity for new knowledge, archaeologist and lead study author Lars Pilo said in a statement. The oldest arrows at the site, which date back to 4000 BC, are in poor condition, possibly from ice movement. Arrows from the late Neolithic period between 2400 and 1750 BC are the best preserved out of all that were found, with objects from the following 2000 years being in worse condition. Scientists have carefully recorded the position of each find and radiocarbon dated 102 artifacts, resulting in a very detailed archaeological record. The different conditions of the artifacts tells us a lot about the mysterious movement of the ice. Interactive zoo encounter gone wrong. In August of this year, a man named Dwight Turner was attacked by a black leopard in Florida. He paid $150 to enter the animal's cage, which was part of a full contact experience at a roadside zoo at someone's house. Instead of being able to rub its belly and take photos like he thought, the leopard turned ferocious and ripped Turner's ear in half, then viciously bit into his head to the point where the man's wife had to readjust a loose flap of skin over an exposed part of his skull. Michael Podgy, the animal dealer who facilitated the so-called full contact experience, was just as taken aback as everyone else that day. He planned for Turner and the leopard to interact peacefully, just like he and his leopard had done many times before. But things went terribly wrong. National Geographic reports that the unexpected turn of events served as a dismal reminder of the tragedies that can happen when humans get too close to wild animals. The desire to post videos and photos with big cats to social media makes it seem as if big cats are not dangerous. And big cat owners have become mega famous thanks to Tiger King, TikTok, and everything else. The pet owners will show videos playing, swimming, and wrestling with their big cats, giving the false impression that it's safe. These are animals whose brains are literally designed to be ambush predators, conservation biologist Imogene Cancellare told Nat Geo. There is no scenario in which entering a space with big cats is going to be 100% safe, even if it's been hand-raised, adding that hand-raised big cats are still genetically wild and are only accustomed to interacting with their handlers rather than the human population at large. It's a compelling argument, especially knowing what Turner went through, and a good reason to think twice about the pros and cons of that photo op. The Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission investigated the case, saying that Turner was still at risk of losing his ear. Big cat encounters are rare at U.S. roadside zoos because there must be physical barriers between the public and big cats 12 weeks or older. The margin of error in these interactions, says National Geographic explorer Andrew Stein, founder of Claws Conservancy, a nonprofit focused on mitigating human-wildlife conflict, is the difference between having a safe encounter and possibly dying. Turner intends to file a lawsuit against Podgy, the owner of the leopard. There are just no winners in this situation. Deadly bear attack. Chinese Zoo's Shanghai Wildlife Park came under fire in October of this year after a bear mauled one of its employees to death in broad daylight in front of horrified onlookers. The incident happened in the park's wild beast area as a group of tourists watched from a bus, capturing disturbing footage that appeared on the Chinese social media platform Weibo. In the video, numerous bears can be seen gathering in one area, while panic-stricken spectators shouted in what can best be described as shock and disbelief. Naturally, Shanghai Wildlife Park understood that it had some explaining to do. In a statement on its website, the establishment offered its condolences to the slaughtered staff member's family and apologized to tourists for any inconvenience caused, adding that the park was extremely distressed that such a tragedy occurred. Moreover, the company vowed to investigate the event, improve its safety management standards, and, in the park's words, do our best to handle the aftermath of the incident. The wild beast exhibit was subsequently closed, and refunds were issued to ticket holders. It appears as though the tragedy caused some people to rethink animal captivity altogether, with some suggesting that the right thing to do is to close zoos and make them a thing of the past. Tiger versus zookeeper. In July, a female zookeeper in Zurich, Switzerland, lost her life to a Siberian tiger named Irina in plain view of visitors and other zoo employees. The 55-year-old woman perished at the scene, despite her co-workers' best efforts to pry the big cat away from her. Eventually, employees managed to lure the beast into a separate enclosure, but their efforts to revive their fallen colleague failed. Sadly, all help came too late, zoo spokesperson Judith Hodel said in a statement. environment. The zoo was left with the unfortunate task of determining why the zookeeper entered the cage while Irina was in there. Professional counseling was provided to those in need, and the zoo extended its full sympathy to the victim's family and loved ones. But many people believe that these courtesies would not be necessary in a world that did not confine wild animals to unnatural environments. A BBC article about the upsetting incident claims that captive animal attacks on humans are relatively rare, but also points out that this was not the first time an animal mauled a zookeeper at the Zurich Zoo. Don't worry, I'll tell you about it. A critically endangered death. Employees shot and killed a critically endangered Philippine crocodile at the Zurich Zoo one evening in December 2019 after the reptile bit a zookeeper's hand and refused to let go. The incident happened when the staff member attempted to separate the crocodile so she could clean his enclosure. Only the crocodile himself knows why he bit the woman's hand and maintained his grip for several minutes, although the zoo vowed to look into the possible reasons for the attack. Thankfully, the injured zookeeper survived, and while her wound required surgery, it looked as though she would fully recover. But the loss of an animal, especially a member of a vulnerable species, represents an often overlooked downside to the event. In a world where endangered animals are rapidly going extinct, it's important to consider any and all viable alternatives to bringing them in close proximity to people, which unavoidably increases the possibility of a life or death situation that warrants killing an animal to spare a human's life. The crocodile who was shot to save the zookeeper's life was a member of a rare species from the Mindanao Islands of the Philippines, of which there are an estimated 250 or fewer specimens left in the wild. Cat and mouse game. Viral footage of an attack that happened back in February only recently surfaced online, showing the moment a captive lion bit a zoo guide's hand and nearly tore the man's arm off at Park Han, a zoo in Dakar, Senegal. The employee, named Abdoulaye Wade, was allegedly trying to show off to visitors when he foolishly decided to stick his hand through the metal bars of the big cat's enclosure and attempted to pet the lion, at which point the animal chomped down without hesitation. In the gruesome video of the attack, it's apparent that the lion almost rips Wade's arm right out of its socket as he screams in agony. Visitors can be heard panicking in the background as the gory event unfolds, with some throwing rocks at the lion in an attempt to free the victim. Wade was finally released from the animal's grasp when he used his free hand to hit the big cat on the head. Thankfully, his arm and hand were still attached to his body, albeit dripping with blood. In the aftermath of the horrifying encounter, some spectators accused Wade of provoking the lion prior to the attack, backing up their allegations with video footage that they claimed was filmed shortly before the tiff occurred. According to some visitors' version of events, Wade played a dangerous cat and mouse game with the lion by repeatedly sticking his hand into the cage and pulling it away before the creature could bite him, until he eventually didn't move fast enough to avoid the animal's jaws. Man tries to drown bear. Once in a while, an unruly zoo visitor becomes a little too brave for their own good and ventures far too close to a wild animal. In many of these cases, the person's behavior triggers the creature to attack, but this time the man was lucky because the bear was nice. In May of this year, a 23-year-old drunk zoogoer reportedly broke into a bear exhibit at the Warsaw Zoo in Poland, causing a bear named Sabina to charge straight at him. The drunkard then jumped into a nearby moat, and the bear, apparently not in the mood for the man's shenanigans, followed. The intruder laid siege to the bear, even attempting to drown it as appalled guests looked on. In what TMZ appropriately called a very dumb move, disturbing video footage shows the man trying to shove the bear's head underwater as the pair struggle against one another. Surprisingly, the bear eventually gave up the fight, giving the unwelcome guest the chance to walk away, which he was hopefully thankful for once he sobered up and understood the gravity of his actions and how much worse things could have turned out. The unlikely outcome was probably influenced by Sabina's age. As an elderly retired circus animal, she was unfortunately used to being abused by humans, which explains why she reacted differently than animals who are raised under different circumstances. The zoo said that Sabina was physically unharmed, but mentally and emotionally traumatized by the encounter. The Warsaw Zoo vowed to bring her attacker to justice, and he was criminally prosecuted for his behavior. Drunk monkey attack. A monkey named Kalua was left hungry and craving alcohol when his owner passed away in 2017 in India's Mirzapur district As a result, the enraged primate went on a violent spree, attacking as many as 250 people, injuring many and even killing someone. The person who originally owned Kalua regularly provided the monkey with alcohol. Over the years, he became an alcoholic, and when the flow of liquor stopped with his caretaker's death, the aggression began. Forest and zoo specialists were called in to get the situation under control and successfully captured Kalua after several failed attempts. They brought him to the Kanpur Zoo, where he received a sentence of life behind bars. Acclimating Kalua to zoo life was a process, according to veterinarian Maud Nasir, who stated earlier this year, "We kept him in isolation for some months and then shifted him to a separate cage. There has been no change in his behavior and he remains as aggressive as he was. It has been 3 years since he was brought here, but now it has been decided he will remain in captivity all his life." As awful as solitary confinement may sound, the alternative would be to euthanize Kalua. Thankfully, the zoo's staff chose to give him the best life possible for an animal who was brought up under such abnormal circumstances. And while the idea of an intoxicated monkey may initially come across as funny, the damage to people's lives and to Kalua's life speaks for itself when it comes to the harm that can come from giving alcohol to animals. Visitor loses pants. A free-roaming bison mother took matters into her own hands in August of this year when a tourist came too close to her and her calf for comfort at Custer State Park in South Dakota. Meaning no harm, the female visitor approached a bison herd with camera in hand, hoping to get some up-close snapshots of the wild animals. The bisons responded by charging toward the woman, blocking a road that runs through the park and catching the attention of other visitors, who pulled out their cameras and hit record. Footage of the incident shows one herd member, the mother who sprang into action to defend her baby, swinging the tourist around like a rag doll, ripping the woman's pants off in the process. A close re-examination of the video shows that the bison's horn became hooked on the tourist's jeans, literally launching her out of her pants. This was easily going to happen to the woman, one bystander wrote on a Facebook post that has since been deleted. "I just knew they weren't respecting these massive, beautiful creatures' space." The Spectator reported that the attacking bison was not euthanized and that the tourist was taken to the hospital with non-serious injuries. Elephant gets fed up. The Monterey Zoo in California made headlines in August after being sued by People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, better known as PETA, a non-profit animal rights group that is well known for blowing the whistle on people and organizations who mistreat and abuse animals. PETA alleged that the zoo used illegal, torturous training methods on its resident elephants, including painful prods and bull hooks, which are against the law in California. The accusations also detailed an incident that the zoo supposedly failed to report, which involved an elephant named Paula attacking and seriously injuring an employee, breaking the staff member's back and ankle. During the incident, Paula reportedly began thrashing and stepped on the handler as another employee struck her with a cane to try getting her under control, according to a PETA article containing information obtained from California Division of Occupational Safety and Health documents. Despite the severity of the attack, it was allegedly never reported to the California Department of Fish and Wildlife as protocol dictates. Even more strangely, PETA claims that Paula passed away within months of the encounter, and the organization also suspects that another elephant who was present during the attack has also died. California's ban on bull hooks and other brutal weapons to control elephants went into effect in 2018. Activists believe that these so-called training techniques can ultimately bring out an elephant's aggressive side, and judging by the hush-hush incident at the Monterey Zoo, they weren't necessarily wrong. Man comes too close to tigress. As writer Amitabh Srivastava points out in an India Today article about animals attacking humans at zoos, while these encounters are statistically rare, zoos can be a dangerous place if one throws caution to the wind. In other words, people have a responsibility to exercise utmost care when they go near an animal exhibit. An example is an attack that happened earlier this year at Bhagwan Birsa Biological Park in Jharkhand, India. While visiting the zoo, a 35-year-old man named Wasim Ansari scaled a tree and jumped across a dry moat to access a tiger exhibit. Why? Why though? He was consequently mauled to death by a 9-year-old tigress named Anushka. Security guards didn't notice Ansari's overstepping until he was dangerously close to Anushka, at which point they, along with the zoo's guests, began clapping and making noise to try scaring the tiger away from the man. Anushka was unmoved by their efforts, and employees failed to retrieve a tranquilizer gun before she clamped her jaws down on Ansari's neck, thereby ending his life. This unfortunate incident is an example of how zoo enclosures are built more to keep animals from escaping than they are to prevent people from entering. After all, we should know better. But anywhere humans go, human safety is an unavoidable factor that companies and property owners need to consider. By doing so, they can ensure that zoos remain safe and fun places where people can learn about fascinating wildlife without unintentionally or knowingly jeopardizing their safety. Zoos need to protect us humans from ourselves. The minka whale hybrid. There are two species of minka whales that literally live on opposite sides of the globe, the Antarctic minka in the south and the northern minka in the Arctic. But it turns out that somehow these whales from polar opposite ends of the planet have come together and created a hybrid. Researchers took samples from a pregnant female minka whale captured in the North Atlantic. These whales have been hunted extensively since the 1930s, and it's kind of a miracle that there are any left. DNA analysis showed that the whale fetus had the genetic blueprint of a hybrid. Both minka species reach up to 35 feet long and migrate seasonally to equatorial waters. While their territory overlaps here, each species migrates at different times of the year, since the seasons are opposite between the two hemispheres. Because of this, scientists long believed that it wasn't even really possible for the northern minka whales and Antarctic minka whales to cross paths. But the newly discovered hybrid proves that their initial suspicions were wrong. The creature in question was killed in 2007, and its DNA was registered as part of Norway's ongoing efforts to ensure that whales are hunted legally. When geneticist Kevin Glover noticed the hybrid's unusual genetic information, he remembered a story someone had told him years earlier about an unusual-looking whale being spotted in 1996. It didn't have the white patch on its pectoral flippers like the northern minka whales do, Glover told National Geographic. He began wondering if the creature was a hybrid like the one he found a record of and analyzed its DNA, only to discover that it was entirely an Antarctic whale. The takeaway from this study is that, much to scientists' surprise, that Antarctic minka whales sometimes travel all the way to the northern minka whales range, and that they even occasionally breed. Whether contact between these species represents a new phenomenon due to lack of food in the Antarctic ecosystem, or has occurred at a low frequency over many years, is still a mystery. Type D orca. In early 2019, a team of scientists identified and studied a group of mysterious killer whales living in the Southern Ocean, in some of the world's harshest known conditions. They look distinctively different from other orcas, with a more rounded head, a narrower and pointier dorsal fin, and an unusually small white eye patch, according to National Geographic. This population, which the researchers observed roughly 60 miles off the coast of Cape Horn, Chile, is highly likely to be a previously unidentified species. Known as Type D, or subantarctic killer whales, they were only ever known from photographs, descriptions, and a mass stranding, with no professional observations to speak of until recently. For this study, the team traveled to an area where fishermen had spotted the animals. After waiting for over a week, a pod numbering over 25 whales appeared. The scientists took a blubber and skin sample for DNA analysis. In early 2020, a British Columbia-based scientist named Josh McInnes had the privilege of observing Type D orcas firsthand during a 3-week National Geographic expedition to Antarctic waters. McInnes and the crew he was traveling with spotted the rare whales in the Drake Passage, which is infamous for harboring some of the world's roughest seas. As a lifelong orca enthusiast and scholar, he immediately recognized the creatures as Type D killer whales. For McInnes, seeing what he calls the rarest marine mammal on the planet came as a complete shock. "That was one animal I dreamed of seeing, but probably thought I'd never see them," he told Global News. In addition to seeing the scarce species in the first place, the team also observed the Type D orcas interacting with other whale species. They noticed a conspicuous lack of aggression between the two, which is contrary to the norm when it comes to marine mammals encountering killer whales, indicating to McInnes that perhaps the suspected new species dines on fish rather than other mammals. Orcas are notorious for eating whale calves. This was the most southerly instance of scientists seeing the subantarctic orca. According to the most recent update, researchers are still analyzing DNA samples of the newly discovered Type D orcas to confirm that they constitute a separate species from other killer whales. True's beaked whale. Beaked whales constitute one of the least understood groups of mammals. The True's beaked whale is one of the rarest species of all. These marine creatures are difficult to spot, let alone study, because they live in extremely deep waters. What we know about them is mostly from strandings, and the handful spotted alive at sea have been alone or in very small groups. In early 2014, New England Boating reported that a jogger on Long Island, New York, encountered what looked like a dead dolphin in shallow water along the coast. He contacted the Riverhead Foundation for Marine Research and Preservation, which responds to whale strandings in the area, and provided cell phone pictures of the creature, which measured 14 feet long. Immediately upon seeing the photos, the organization's rescue program director, Kimberly Durham, knew that the animal was not a dolphin. She identified it as a True's beaked whale and reached out to other whale specialists and organizations, including the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, giving them a rare opportunity to study the enigmatic species. While conducting a survey in late 2019, volunteers from the nonprofit Orca snapped pictures of a pod of 4 True's beaked whales in the Bay of Biscay in the Northeast Atlantic Ocean. It was the first confirmed sighting of the species in the region, and the photographic evidence showed that one of the whales, a male, appeared to have 2 extra teeth. Discoveries like this show just how little experts know about beaked whales in general, including, and perhaps especially, the True's beaked whale. Dolphin-whale hybrid. According to a 2018 report, scientists from the U.S. Navy-funded Cascadia Research Collective Marine Mammal Monitoring Program have identified a rare dolphin-whale hybrid off the Kauai coast in the Hawaiian Islands. After tagging several cetaceans in 2017, they noticed that one creature looked unlike any known species. It had the dorsal fin of a melon-headed whale with a sloped head that more closely resembled a rough-toothed dolphin, as well as blotchy pigmentation. DNA analysis revealed the creature as the first known offspring of a melon-headed whale and a rough-toothed dolphin. This unique genetic combination was possible because melon-headed whales are actually from the oceanic dolphin family, which includes orcas and 2 pilot whale species. The researchers pointed out that the hybrid specimen does not represent a new species and is so far only known as an isolated case. The team noticed that the hybrid was traveling with a melon-headed whale and saw the pair associating with rough-toothed dolphins. This entire scenario is a bit strange, considering that 1, this was the first known sighting of a melon-headed whale in the immediate area, and 2, melon-headed whales are known to congregate in groups of 200 to 300 members, not in small pairs. It is most likely the melon-headed whale is its mother who has joined the pod of dolphins. The Cascadia Research Collective is hoping that they are able to find the pair again to see how this curious hybrid came to be. North Pacific right whale. No thanks largely to commercial whaling, the North Pacific right whale was nearly wiped from existence during the mid-19th century. Today, it is the rarest large whale species, with an estimated population in the double digits. While North Pacific right whales often came into close contact with humans who were hunting them, scientists have had far less interactions with the species, and we know very little about them. They are rarely seen today, with just a handful of confirmed sightings over the last several decades. Researchers do know that the whale is a baleen species that feeds on krill and small fish, that it grows between 45 and 64 feet long, and that it can weigh up to 100 tons. The most recent confirmed sighting of a North Pacific right whale happened in 2013 near Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. Scientists observed the 52-foot-long specimen among a group of humpback whales over a several-day span. Although the whaling industry is far less of an issue now than it used to be, human activity continues to threaten the North Pacific right whale. Entanglement in fishing gear, vessel strikes, climate change, and underwater noise all pose ongoing hazards to this critically endangered species. The narwhal. While you've probably already heard of narwhals, the more you learn about them, the more mysterious they become. Nicknamed the unicorn of the sea, this Arctic Ocean-dwelling species is best known for the 6 to 9 foot long tusk that protrudes from the skulls of male specimens. No other animal on Earth has this feature or anything remotely like it. The narwhal's unicorn horn is actually a giant tooth that sticks out through the head from the animal's upper lip, always spiraling in a counterclockwise direction. It sprouts from the left side of the whale's mouth and is paired with a much more normal tooth that remains embedded in the creature's jaw. Once in a great while, both teeth erupt as tusks, but one is always longer. This asymmetry is a one-of-a-kind example in nature. Meanwhile, narwhals have no teeth inside their mouth. Scientists are unsure what they use their tusks for. They believe it may play a role in mating since it's a predominantly male feature. Size matters in the animal kingdom, and females may judge a potential mate's suitability based on how big his tusk is, or isn't. Oddly, however, female narwhals also sometimes develop a tusk, throwing an unexpected twist into this theory. This not only complicates the idea of narwhals using their tusk for mating, it obstructs the notion that tusks may have evolved for use in male-to-male combat. At the same time, other signs, including broken tusks and forehead scars, point towards fights between narwhals. It's also possible that the appendage helps them detect prey and with sensing their surroundings. Narwhals use echolocation and produce about 1,000 clicks per second, and scientists used to believe their long tooth helped them with that. But those that don't have the tusk are also just as able to use echolocation. Drone footage captured in 2017 might provide the best evidence thus far. In the clip, narwhals use their tusk to pierce and stun prey, indicating that it is most likely a hunting weapon. This is the first ever video of the animals actually using their horns and serves as a major turning point in the lingering mystery. Blue whale and fin whale hybrid. A whale that was killed off the coast of Iceland in 2018 made headlines when conservationists expressed concern that it may be a member of the protected blue whale species. Images of the gargantuan creature being butchered circulated online, sparking outrage and demands for answers among activists. At first glance, some researchers suspected that the animal was a young male blue whale. DNA tests later confirmed that it was the very rare offspring of a female blue whale and a male fin whale. A flu whale? A blin? I don't know what you call it. The unique hybrid's conservation status is controversial. Both blue whales, which were hunted nearly to extinction at one point, and fin whales are afforded the highest protection available via an International Whaling Commission worldwide moratorium on whale hunting that went into effect in 1982. While Iceland respects the blue whale's protected status, it disagrees that fin whales are a threatened species and issues hunting permits for them. Hybrid whales are uncommon in the waters off Iceland, with only 5 being recorded since 1983, according to Astrid Fuchs from the nonprofit Whale and Dolphin Conservation, who spoke with the BBC. The company responsible for the animal's death said that it knew all along that the creature was a hybrid, not a blue whale, and defended its alleged right to kill it. Animal advocates stand firm in their stance that it was still wrong to kill the whale and are using its death as an example of why they believe whale hunting should end altogether in Icelandic waters. Once the whale was verified as a hybrid, its meat could not legally be shipped anywhere, including to Japan, Iceland's top whale meat customer. Meanwhile, the whale hunters suffered no major repercussions due to the gray area of the animal's conservation status. Spade-toothed whale. The spade-toothed whale is the rarest of the 21 beaked whale species. It was first identified based on a partial jaw that washed ashore in New Zealand in 1872. Partial skulls were subsequently found in 1950 and 1986. Nobody witnessed a spade-toothed whale firsthand until December 2010, when 2 of the creatures were found on Opabe Beach in New Zealand. Both died before staff members from the Department of Conservation arrived at the scene. At first, they thought that the pair were graze-beaked whales, a species that commonly becomes stranded in the region. But much to the researchers' surprise, a DNA analysis proved that the duo were actually spade-toothed whales. Since only bones were ever found until then, this marked the first time scientists finally knew what the species looks like. Advanced DNA technology has helped to simplify the process of identifying similar-looking whale species, and New Zealand's highly efficient system of reporting and responding to whale strandings has yielded over 2 decades worth of records detailing rare species. Many unanswered questions continue to surround the elusive spade-toothed whale. Because they are so rarely seen, scientists don't know how many are left or how endangered they are. It's possible that these mysterious marine mammals dwell primarily in deep waters, making encounters with humans unlikely, but like many cetaceans, they could also be threatened. The Arluga. Narwhals are strange enough on their own, but things got even weirder in 2019 when a shocking study documented one known instance of the so-called unicorn of the sea breeding with a beluga. The finding is based on a bizarre whale skull that an Inuit hunter donated to the Natural History Museum of Denmark in 1990. It belonged to one of 3 strange whales the man hunted off Greenland's western coast during the mid-80s. The creatures had beluga-like pectoral fins and tails that more closely resembled the narwhal. The skull's lower jaw contains odd-looking pointed teeth, is larger than the skull of either a beluga or a narwhal, and just looks super weird, in the words of lead study author Aline Lawrenson. Scientists compared DNA from the skull's teeth with the teeth of 8 belugas and 8 narwhals, and the results were nothing short of shocking. The specimen in question appears to be 54% beluga and 46% narwhal, proving definitively for the first time that the two species have, in fact, interbred. Furthermore, evidence suggests that the creature was a male and that his mom was a narwhal. Whether you prefer to call it a narluga or a bellwal, this one-of-a-kind example of the beluga-narwhal hybrid is quite fascinating. At the same time, the discovery is not as surprising as it seems. Narwhals are known to occasionally travel with beluga pods and vice versa, and hybridization between whale species in general is not uncommon. As climate change worsens and Arctic sea ice continues to melt, experts speculate that we may see more examples of whales interbreeding. They are currently examining bones dating back as far as 50,000 years in an effort to identify prior examples of this happening. Bulgarian Atlantis. A Bronze Age settlement that is believed to be older than the pyramids in Egypt has been discovered in Bulgaria. Underwater archaeologists found evidence of a human settlement near the mouth of the Ropotamo River on Bulgaria's southern Black Sea coast. They believe it could date back to the 5th millennium BC. It looks like over time, the waters of the Black Sea rose, causing the inhabitants to abandon it until it was finally completely submerged underwater. The Black Sea Map Project is made up of an international team of archaeologists on a mission to survey the area and explore how human societies in prehistory responded to environmental change. Beside the settlement, they have also found over 60 shipwrecks ranging from the ancient Greeks to the Romans to other powerful groups such as the Venetians and Genoans. This place is perfect for preserving things due to the anoxic conditions of the water, which means there is very little oxygen that prevents the decay of wood and other organic matter. The divers have found house timbers, hearths, and ceramics right off the shore. The team of Black Sea Map says the village became a sheltered bay visited by ancient Greek colonists of the Archaic period, then a harbor for early Byzantine seafarers, and finally an anchorage used by the Ottomans as the waters continued to rise. Archaeologists found the harbor where the modern resort town of Sozopol currently stands. It's believed to have been used from the 5th century BC to modern times. Researchers believe it was connected to the Greek colony of Apollonia Ponta, and some of the materials found are dated to the early Bronze Age. The structures could have been built 1,500 years before the Great Pyramids of Giza. Scientists believe people may have lived there 1,000 years earlier than originally thought, at a time when the whole area was on dry land. Local homes were built on wooden columns because of rising sea levels, with researchers finding remnants of pillars preserved underwater. As scientists continue to explore, they hope to uncover more about the settlement over the next few years, hoping it will shed light on the lives of those who lived there 6,000 years ago, before what remained was buried under sand and water in the Black Sea. Inca Offerings. Lake Titicaca might sound funny, but it was a very sacred place to the Inca. Lake Titicaca was an important area for rituals and offerings to their sun god. During an underwater survey of the lake located between Bolivia and Peru, archaeologists recovered an offering box made from volcanic stone, discovered lying on a reef 18 feet below the surface of the lake. The box was sealed by a round stone plug that had been undisturbed since it was deposited more than 5 centuries ago. Covered in sediment, the box contained a small rolled cylinder of gold sheeting and a figurine of a llama made from an oyster shell. Possibly an offering to a goddess known as Mama Cocha, the gold cylinder is believed to be a replica of a bracelet that Inca noblemen wore on their right forearm, with a llama representing the Inca's sturdy beast of burden. This is not the first discovery made in Lake Titicaca. In modern times, divers, including Jacques Cousteau, have searched the waters for various treasures, finding 24 stone boxes with differing shapes and contents, including similar figurines to the one found in the box. Often made of rare and valuable material, including silver and gold, the offerings are believed to have been deposited for multiple reasons, ranging from asking for things to giving things they believed their gods had asked for. Before the Inca, a group known as the Tiwanaku, a pre-Hispanic civilization, lived in the area between 200 BC and 1000 AD. They most likely thought of the lake as a sacred place as well. Scientists believe the offerings could have been linked to a cult of Inca ancestors who made pilgrimages to the island of the sun, which was the center of the origin myths for the Inca people. Some also believe the figurine in the shape of the llama could possibly have been pleas for fertility of llama and alpaca herds, who the Inca people believed originated from the lake. It's possible they may have been praying for fertility of the land and abundant harvest, which would have been important to these ancient people. Aboriginal Archaeological Site. 65,000 years ago, when people first arrived in Australia, sea levels were 262 feet lower than they are today. This means that there was more dry land along the coast where people lived, and during the last ice age, sea levels dropped to 426 feet lower than they are now. For thousands of years, generations of people would have lived in towns and settlements that are now underwater. 18,000 to 8,000 years ago, the world warmed up and water levels rose, covering much of the coastline. A group of scientists from archaeologists, geologists, divers, pilots, and more have come together to try to find submerged archaeological sites. They have uncovered 2 sites so far in what is known as the Dampier Archipelago. The first site had hundreds of stone artifacts located on the seabed, including grinding stones, used to grind seed into flour for bread making. They were also sometimes used to crack animal bones to extract their marrow and to pulverize the cartilage of smaller animals such as lizards. Similar stones were also used to grind up pigments and to sharpen and smooth wooden and stone tools. Located at the second site, known as Flying Foam Passage, researchers discovered traces of human activity near what was a submerged freshwater spring, 46 feet below sea level. Here they also found stone cutting tools. Both sites were radiocarbon dated to be about 7,000 years old when they were submerged by rising sea levels. Previous expeditions in the area of the Burrup Peninsula uncovered human activity and rock art as well as stone tools, telling us more about the first people to arrive to Australia. As these ancient sites became submerged, the secrets of these ancient people were lost. But now, as researchers continue to conduct these underwater expeditions, we have a better understanding of the early people who traveled in boats from the islands of eastern Indonesia. Underwater quarry discoveries. 2 British divers known for specializing in searching for lost belongings underwater recently uncovered old wheel pipework and a heavily corroded building 60 feet below the surface of a flooded quarry in England. But after more searching, they made a more shocking discovery. In the flooded quarry located in Cornwall, the men also discovered 1,000 high-power explosives. What started out as a routine dive one Saturday to clean plastic from local quarries, the men came upon a bag that was sealed and seemed completely unremarkable. But after they surfaced and opened up the bag, they found blasting caps that are used to detonate larger bombs. After calling the police and the bomb squad, they got a better look at what they had discovered and realized that there were 1,000 blasting caps in the bag. Surprisingly, discoveries like this are not uncommon in the area. The Cornwall Maritime Archaeology Group often undertakes similar dives, specializing in exploring historic sites such as shipwrecks off the coast. A pair of divers exploring a different quarry found the remains of a granite building with rusty vices, and in 2019, the diving group discovered the remains of an ancient shipwreck which sank in 1684. Old timbers and a cannon were discovered from the Dutch sailing ship the Schiedam, which wrecked off the coast while carrying munitions. Not long after the ship was discovered, 2 hand grenades believed to have come from the ship also washed ashore, still filled with gunpowder. Made with iron shells, these were the earliest type of hand grenade used by British soldiers. A local historian discovered the shells in November of 2018, and upon first glance he thought it was a rock, until he dropped it and it broke open to reveal the gunpowder still inside. This ship has an intriguing history, starting as a trading ship until it was captured by pirates off the coast of Gibraltar in 1683. After the English later recaptured the ship, it became a carrier ship and was transporting military weapons back to England from Morocco when it ran aground and sank in the ocean. Clearly, if you are out diving, keep an eye out because there are all kinds of things waiting to be found. Ice Age cave fossils. The Yucatan Peninsula is well known for its underground cave system known as cenotes. These were sacred places to the Maya and played a major role in their belief system. But in this case, it wasn't artifacts that diving archaeologists found, but preserved bones that were trapped for centuries underwater, belonging to large Ice Age beasts. Known as the Hoyo Negro, or the Black Hole, the cave held secrets to the ancient past and the people who mingled among some of Earth's creatures that are long gone. Inside the massive water-filled chamber, there are remains of at least 28 animals. As archaeologists and paleontologists examine the fossils, they discover ties to the Great American Interchange, the migration of ancient animals between North and South America. Within the underwater cave, entire animals were preserved because of low oxygen levels in the water that have kept the remains undisturbed for more than 10,000 years. Among the animals found were saber-toothed cats, peccaries or skunk pigs, mountain lions, tapirs, and an elephant-like animal known as a gomphothere. Preserved within the cave were also footprints of ancient bears that were crusted over in a film of calcite. The team identified a new species of ground sloth in the cave, whose name translates from the Mayan for great clawed dweller of the underworld. Divers found 3 preserved skulls of an extinct bear species in the cave, a cousin of the Andean spectacled bear. Because they were so well preserved, it allows scientists to create high-quality reproductions for further study. With only a fraction of the remains excavated, it lends much promise to the belief that more bones and other extinct and previously undiscovered species will be found deep in the cenotes of the Yucatan Peninsula. Invaluable Shipwreck. Have you ever wondered what happens to priceless artifacts when they're discovered? Well, the fight for the world's most valuable shipwreck is getting messy. Worth billions of dollars, it was missing for years, and now that it's been found, everyone wants a piece of the pie. When a 300-year-old shipwreck known as the San Jose was discovered off the Colombian coast, experts estimated the value of gold, silver, and jewels at almost $20 billion. But with so much treasure up for grabs, it makes sense that multiple parties would jockey for the position of claiming it as their own. When a group known as the Sea Search Armada revealed the location of the San Jose to Colombian officials, the government passed a law that claimed ownership of the wreck. Understandably, Sea Search Armada wanted to claim at least half of the treasure for discovering the wreck in the first place in the Caribbean Sea 11 miles offshore from Cartagena. But as court battles continued, the Colombian government announced that one of their own expeditions involving the Navy and archaeologists had discovered the wreck site decades earlier. Spain and England also want a piece, because why not? The San Jose was part of a Spanish fleet that transported several years' worth of taxes and business profits owed to the Spanish crown and 2 galleons that were armed with more than 60 guns each. At the time it set sail in 1708, Spain and England were fighting the War of Spanish Succession, and in June of that same year, the Spanish fleet came under fire from English ships, during which the San Jose went up in a spectacular explosion. Burning planks rained down over the combatants, and the ship sunk almost immediately after the blast, with only 11 members of the 600-man crew surviving. Made famous in Gabriel Garcia Marquez's novel Love in the Time of Cholera, the Spanish galleons never made it to King Philip V of Spain, who was hoping to further finance his war. But when the British Navy, armed with pistols and swords, tried to board the ship and take it as their own, the San Jose was then destroyed. Some even theorized that the ship's captain, rather than surrendering it to the British and returning to Spain empty-handed, could have ignited the gunpowder on the ship and exploded it himself. For centuries, the ship stayed lost on the ocean floor, but with its discovery near the Rosario Islands, a battle began over who should lay claim to its treasures. Besides its monetary value, it is an extremely valuable find for everyone, representing almost 300 years of colonial history from Europe and the American territory. You would think everyone would be in a rush to bring it up, but they are not. The ship has been submerged for 300 years, and this guarantees the right to conservation, said underwater archaeologist Juan Guillermo Martín. If we don't have the conditions right now in Colombia to assume the rescue, it makes no sense to do it. It's a fundamental principle of responsibility for Colombian heritage, but also for humanity. With the San Jose being found in Colombian waters, it's difficult to say who will end up enjoying the spoils. In July 2018, there was a deadline for companies to submit proposals to excavate the 300-year-old wreck, but the president of Colombia later suspended the decision, citing legal challenges. In the meantime, the government of Colombia has made all the information regarding the location of the ship as classified. Roman ship in Croatia. Off the coast of the Croatian city of Pag, divers have discovered an ancient underwater vessel. When a group of firefighters were going for a dive, not far from the island of Pag, they came across the remains of an ancient ship and cargo that dated back to Roman antiquity. This was not the first time the 2,000-year-old remains were discovered. A group of local divers had stumbled across the same remains earlier, but had previously ignored the pile, thinking it was just random debris at the bottom of the sea. But the firefighters also were divers and included an underwater archaeologist, so they recognized the pile of squares as building materials that were later proved to date back to the Roman era. Upon further exploration, it was determined that the rubble was part of a sunken ship's cargo of roof coverings that are similar to terracotta tiles or shingles. Believed to date to the beginning of the 1st century BC, the boat was lying on the seafloor with an estimated 600 pieces of amphora, or small earthen containers, found on the boat. This 2,000-year-old ship was probably trying to find shelter from the extreme winds common on that side of the island. The ship is set to become a new attraction for diving tourism, with 180 diving centers already recorded in Croatia. The divers are very happy to have found it, but said it was bittersweet because once these places are reported, continued dives are banned until the areas can be protected and preserved. And then other divers will most likely be there, and the place is no longer as private. Underwater Moroccan city. Along the Atlantic coast of Morocco, archaeologists have made the discovery of several shipwrecks off the coast of Safi. One might date back to between 2700 BC and 900 BC, during the Bronze Age. But the purpose of all of these underwater expeditions is not to find ships at all, but to find the lost city of Tikhalin. There are remnants under the water, but scientists are looking for more evidence to describe the ruins underneath the waves. The coast of Morocco is teeming with all kinds of archaeological treasures, and it is just a question of being able to find them and preserve them, which is no easy feat. The local Archaeological Association is hoping the discoveries will bring to light how the inhabitants in the area used to live. Fossilized human bones were also found in prehistoric caves in the area, and along with the remains of the newly discovered ancient warship, it is clear that Morocco is a hotbed of archaeological discoveries. But the search for the city is still on. Once operating as an essential trading hub between Africa and Europe, the underwater city of Tikhalin has some believing that it could possibly be the ancient lost city of Atlantis. Thanks for watching! Remember to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you soon! Bye!